I want to bring in our sister now, who is the co-founder of the Los Angeles chapter of the Black Lives Matter, as well as she's also a tenured professor of African American history, Sister Melina Abdullah. Sister Melina, always a pleasure to have you joining us here on the show. How are you this afternoon?
I'm okay. Great to be here and great to listen in, and really appreciate that analysis that Brother Rashad gave, which I think was spot on. I'm also the director of Black Lives Matter Grassroots, which is the on the ground work that Black Lives Matter continues to do globally. So it's our collection of chapters and campaigns and movement work that's going on all around this world, including here in Los Angeles.
Fantastic. Sister Melina, first and foremost, I read about what happened to you at Cal State, you being removed by force by LAPD. And this was happening, and Keenan, if we want to show that video, brother, please. This was happening during a mayoral event where there were a number of protesters out there because they were protesting, saying that all the candidates at this mayoral event was not being represented. And as a result of that, police decided to take you into custody and others. And we show this video right now, Sister Melina. Tell us what was going on. What led to you being removed? What led to the fact that, you know, it didn't seem like there were anyone that really came to your aid?
So let me give you the moments before the violent removal, my violent removal. So you got what happened, what people captured outside of the event, but inside the event, it was in a student union theater, which accommodates about 192 people. There were less than 20 folks in. I've been a professor at Cal State LA for 20 years. I teach Black Power. And I had my students there, and I told them there's a mayoral debate. You know, we're going to go, we're going to analyze it. We're going to talk about what it means that the first viable Black woman candidate is running. And they were denied entry, but I've been there 20 years. So I know every entrance to every building. So I just walked around and walked in through another door and sat in the theater. And as I was sitting there, the director of the center that was sponsoring it walks up to me. I've also known him for more than 20 years. He walks up and says, "This is a ticketed event." I had on my mask, so I took off my mask and I said, "It's me." And he doesn't say anything, but 20 minutes later, it was actually campus police come in. And one of my colleagues was asked to leave, and she left or starts to move, and then they tell me to leave, and I contest that, not protest, but I said, "I teach here." Next thing you know, they grab me by my shoulders and drag me down the aisle. I'm reaching for my purse, and when I get to the end of the aisle, the two male officers yell out to the women officers, "Grab her feet." And they grabbed me by all fours, each of them tugging in a different direction. I'm yelling, "You're hurting me." None of the candidates on the stage did anything. All of the candidates were on the stage. The director of the center doesn't say, "Hey, leave her alone." They actually carry me through the building. And why it looks like no one came to my aid is because about 50 folks were trying to get in through the front door. They saw me being carried out through the back door, and so it took them some time to run around the back. And about 50 to 60 folks were actually able to free me from police custody. And what's happened since is I'm very proud of my university's faculty. On Tuesday, we decided that, you know, it's the president of the university, whose name is Bill Covino, who enabled this. And so a vote of no confidence was taken in him, and 91% of the academic senate voted no confidence in Bill Covino, and voted to look at alternatives to policing on our campus. So I was severely harmed. It was May Day. It was the last day of Ramadan. It was the first day of Teacher Appreciation Week. All of these things happening. I was harmed physically, and I was also humiliated, right? So my legs spread open, I was dressed, but it was not a way that anyone should be treated. And we're going to turn that harm into something that's a victory for both the campus, but also the broader Black community.
And one of the big things, Sister Melina, is that you're calling for the president of Cal State to resign. Is that correct?
Yes, we're calling for him to resign, to step down, or be removed by the Board of Trustees.
And what has been, as a result of that call, of that demand, what has been the feedback that you received?
So that's the no confidence vote, that
Okay.
91% of the academic senate agrees that he needs to go.
So this all happened. I mean, just to let our watchers know, you are a tenured professor. This is where you got your tenure at Cal State.
Yes, I'm a tenured professor. I was chair of Pan-African Studies for 9 years. I've been teaching there 20 years. I'm an academic senator, so I'm part of the university's leadership. No one should be treated like that. But if I could be treated like that, that means anyone can be treated like that. And we know that the president of Cal State LA has a really long history of anti-Blackness. They're very angered by the fact that the majority, or at least half of the original members of Black Lives Matter, come from the Department of Pan-African Studies at Cal State LA. It was, we Black studies, Pan-African studies is about developing intellectual tools so that we can work for the freedom of our people. And so, in 2013, when Black Lives Matter was birthed, it was students and faculty from Pan-African Studies in the streets birthing Black Lives Matter, not only in Los Angeles, but that would be the first chapter that then births this movement that becomes the largest global movement for racial justice in the history of the world. And you would think that anybody like us who say, well, that's what universities should be doing, they should be honing those intellectual tools, we'd be praising that. But instead, if you are leadership or misleadership like Bill Covino, you see that as a threat and you try to squash that, including attacking people like me and others. I'm not the first person to be attacked. He's called campus police on students, he's called campus police on faculty, and been really, really anti-Black over his 9-year legacy. And so we're saying that legacy needs to come to an end now.
So there were, I mean, this was a mayoral debate. You had some of the major candidates running for the mayor of Los Angeles, President Karen Bass and others. What did they do while this was all happening?
They did absolutely nothing. And that's also, hurtful. I've also known Karen Bass for 20 years. Another one of the so-called front runners, his name is Kevin De Leon. I've known him for 20 years. In fact, he was my student. I often take credit for him because he took my class voting campaigns and elections, and now he's in office, right? These are people that Karen and I communicate on at least a weekly basis. And so I actually, as I was being hurt, I said, they're hurting me, and I called both of them by name, and neither of them lifted a finger or said a word.
That's a hard pill to swallow, Sister Melina.
It is.
This is a hard pill to swallow, to hear the story, and we want to, let's bring Rashad back into this as well. To hear this story, and it's a very hard pill to swallow. Like, there's one thing that you can disagree with a person, on their ideology or their philosophy or their, when it comes to, certain issues. But it's another thing when things get physical, especially for Black women, when Black women are involved, that no one has done anything. I read, Sister Melina, that there were about 50 people that were in attendance for this debate. That this wasn't, even though it was in a big venue, that there weren't a lot of people there. Did anybody come to your aid while this was all going on?
So there were about 50 people outside who'd been
Okay.
locked out of the event, but inside that theater that seats 192 people, there were about 20 people, and that includes the candidates and the media. In fact, it was so sparsely attended that I heard the cameramen who were standing behind me going, "Where is everybody? Where are all the students?" And the truth is, the students were locked outside.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah, this just listening to our sister one, I want to say, we see, we recognize, and we honor you for your work. And I'm fortunate that you had to go through this, but thank you for standing in whom you are in your work. It sounds like much of a powder keg situation that it was brewing over years, but it had to take this one particular incident to move things and have these courageous decisions that should have been addressed years ago. So, but thank you for being, an unwarranted martyr. And I think most of the time, who acts to be a martyr in that work. But I'm grateful that you're still alive and you still be able to give your voice to the unfortunate circumstance. But being the change agent and the champion you are for us as a community, thank you for still staying steadfast in your work. Um, but what gets me is these 3 points as I'm listening to your story. One is the idea of around having a closed ticketed event for a forum that should be that is centered around public elected officials, right? So what is the intentionality of having a ticketed event that is minimum in representation and people being in the audience on a large scale university that has its own department that is building up young people, and it shows this validity and impact as one of the young people that was a past student as an elected official and often going towards expanding into another political office. It calls into question the intent of that actual forum, the college and the university, and as well as seeing the interests of the young people in the communities that wants to be there. Why not create space for them to hear the same person, if elected, that will have the pen and power that directly impacts their community? And that is an issue that we have around civic engagement. If we are going to be civically engaged people, we need the
Mm-hmm.
space to do so, to hear directly from those people. And the second one is when they see these situations happen and you have a interpersonal, intergenerational relationship with these elected officials that are serving or are candidates to serve in position. When you have these incidents that happen in real time and you see them not show up and use their power and influence to address or be resolute in that manner, it makes you question what would they actually do once they are elected.
Mm.
And the third part is with our sister, with anyone that understands or have went into higher education knows that getting a tenure position is not easy at all. It comes with a sense of that person have their own credibility, expertise, and knowing their work and the impact and how it can directly build up the credibility of the institution, but also how they pour into our young people. That this sister has done her work shows for itself. That if there is not any place where an intellectual should feel at home it should be on a college university, and to possess and exemplify that power, that skill set and your intellect and be closed out of the opportunity for you to exude that, it calls into question the university, and it calls into question when do we allow and create lanes for our people to show up in their strengths. If she cannot show up in her strength of what that is and to bring her students in there to implement their skills and what they're learning in real time, is our colleges and university really servicing their purpose?
Mm. Sister Melina.
I would just, I appreciate all that was shared, and I would just, I guess, underline some of the points that were made, especially the points around the candidates. If they're running for mayor of Los Angeles, one of the things that we saw is after the abuse happened, everybody was outraged, and I'll send you some of the video of what happened inside, because what happened inside was even more horrific than what happened outside, right? And so I'm yelling, they're hurting me, and calling them by name. What the candidates said, Karen Bass and Kevin De Leon said, is They acknowledge that they know me very well, that they've known me for 20 years, and then said, "We didn't know that was her." What bothers me is, one, I don't believe them. That I think I'm pretty recognizable. In fact, when I yelled out, I even took my mask off to make sure they could see me. And even though it's a 192 person theater, that's still very small. So the debate hadn't started, they could see. I also have a radio show and have a pretty distinctive voice. So I think they would recognize my voice, even if they didn't see my face. But I think the bigger point is, what if it wasn't me? So what? So what if it wasn't me? What if it was some other Black woman faculty who's saying, "I teach here, you're hurting me," and calling for help? You shouldn't have to know that person in order to come to their aid. And if that's the kind of leadership we're looking at, that's not the kind of leadership I desire for the city. I think that anytime someone is being abused by police, especially leaders, should hop in and at the very minimum say, "What's going on?" Question it, you know?
So this situation here, Sister Melina, it just continues to add to, the trials that Black Lives Matter has been under, where there some people are losing their, with the alliances that were made over the past decade, are starting to, what some people would say, are starting to kind of fall apart, because some people say, hey, BLM is still, saying this and that, but the reality is that, the conditions of Black communities and other folks, things aren't really changing. The latest controversy around how the money is used, so people are saying, well, why should we help them when they seem to be self-serving? And I, and I wanted to bring you on because, one, I wanted for you to tell your story unapologetically and unfiltered, in an unfiltered way. But then two, how should people start to look at the work that you're doing as an individual, as a Black woman activist, as a tenured professor, but then looking at the work that you're doing as part of this larger movement? How do people, what do you advise for people to do, or how to look at this situation and say, well, okay, well, Sister Melina was hurt, but I don't like Black Lives Matter because of A, B, and C. It's, I don't know if the buy-in or if the trust and faith that people have for Black Lives Matter is as strong as it used to be, where a moment like this, they would have normally stepped in a few years ago. But now that things have changed, how do you want people to look at this situation? It's just trying to wrap my head around it.
Yeah. So I do want to say that, as terrible as it was what happened to me, people did step in. And again, they wrestled me, literally, physically wrestled me, at great risk to themselves, away from, the police who were trying to bring me harm. So I want to lift that up. And I want to say, if there's beauty in anything, there's beauty in that. I also want to say, of course, we've all witnessed what's been happening with the assaults on Black Lives Matter. And I really, again, appreciate Rashad's grounding in Black political history, right? If we think about any movement for Black liberation, so Black Lives Matter is not about, okay, there's these systems, we want reform. We're saying that these systems were built in order to bring harm to Black people, right? Prisons descend from plantations, police descend from paddy rollers. There is no reforming that, right? We have to completely reimagine systems of public safety and invest deeply in systems of care. We can't think that by moving police into our neighborhoods, that's going to be the solution. In fact, as a Black mother of 3 children who lives in a Black neighborhood, I don't want police living in my neighborhood. What I want is strong neighborhoods where, everybody has the resources that we need, right? Where the community is nurtured, where we have food and good jobs, those are the things that we need. And when we say that that's what we're advocating for, that's what we're fighting for, that's what we're putting our bodies on the line for. And now, with people having poured money into Black Lives Matter, we actually have some resources to do some things. That is a direct threat to white supremacy. And so, of course, we're taking on the full-on backlash of those who want to maintain a system that brings us harm, that exploits us for their benefit. And so much of what you're seeing in terms of the assaults on Black Lives Matter, if you think about the outlets they come out in, these are not real media sources. So the Washington Examiner is not the Washington Post, and the New York Post is not the New York Times. So people need to be a little bit more savvy about who's putting what out. We also need to be thoughtful about, some of the attacks around, did Black Lives Matter buy a property? Yes, Black Lives Matter bought a property. You know who else has property? The Red Cross, the American Cancer Society, the ACLU, virtually every organization that has any resource, including Black organizations like the NAACP and the Urban League. This is one of the ways that we sustain our dollars. And we need to remember that even though tens of millions of dollars poured in 2020, that was unprecedented and it may never happen again. So it's our duty to make sure those dollars stretch. And I'm saying that as one who's actually not on the money side of Black Lives Matter. I'm the director of Black Lives Matter Grassroots, which means I'm the movement side, not the money side. But I'm saying that I understand the need to stretch those dollars so that we can continue to do the work on the ground. And I think that our pushback as Black people who want freedom for our folks has to be, look, we need to deeply invest in this work. What's happened over the last 8.5 years, Black Lives Matter was born July 13th, 2013, the day that the murderer of Trayvon Martin was acquitted. We need to remember that in the last 8.5 years, we have built a tremendous force. I don't know if people remember pre-2013, when anytime we said Black, we had to hide it under this umbrella of people of color, or we had to follow it up very quickly and go Black and brown, as if we couldn't just say Black. The idea of saying unapologetically that Black people require freedom, my children require freedom, future generations require freedom, is something that's been ushered in. And that has meant differences in the ways in which we're represented in media. It's meant a commitment to liberatory models of education. It's meant a pushback against the assaults that we experience every day at the hands of police and prison systems. And so it means that for Black people, we can't allow a backlash, white supremacist backlash, who wants to hold on to old ways of being, to really cause us to turn our backs on the most viable movement of our lifetimes.
And at this point, Sister Melina, do you want people to, do you think that people are justified in walking away, not showing their support for Black Lives Matter, or do you, or what are your thoughts around that? Sister Melina?
We have a protest in front of the Police Association. I don't know if you're in Los Angeles, every single week. And they're not the hundreds of thousands of people that we saw in the street in 2020, but it is hundreds of people. So the idea that people are turning their backs on Black Lives Matter actually is not true. It's that, in a moment where we're moving out of a pandemic, when we're trying to find our footing financially, people can't be in the streets forever. We're still resolute. We're still saying names like Peter Leoya, or Patrick Leoya, who was murdered in Grand Rapids. We're still lifting up names like Andrew Joseph III, who was 14 years old when he was murdered as a result of police action in Tampa, Florida. We're still fighting for Black lives and demanding changes in policy. In terms of Andrew Joseph's name, we're demanding the end of qualified immunity, right? We're still taking that on. It just can't forever look like hundreds of thousands and even millions of people in the streets consistently. But we have to fight in every way that we can. I'm especially inspired by the children who are leading the Black Lives Matter in Schools work along with their teachers, saying that we need to invest heavily in education and nurses and counselors and librarians on our campuses, and remove the police who actually on a daily basis, traumatize our children. And they've been really, really successful in demanding care, not cops on their campus, and demanding police-free schools all across the country, but especially in cities like Los Angeles and Oakland. And so, no, I don't think Black people are turning their backs on Black Lives Matter, but we have to remind ourselves that this work is constant. And in the words of Angela Davis, freedom is a constant struggle.
Elon Musk, who is the SpaceX and Tesla CEO, said that he would allow former President Donald Trump to jump back on the social media that he is working to buy and to fully acquire, the $44 billion social media platform Twitter, where the former president, was permanently banned from the social media site as a result of what happened on January the 6th. Now, Mr. Musk has went as far as to say that he thought that the decision to ban Trump on Twitter, on this platform, was quote unquote morally a bad decision. He said that. And he spoke to the co-founder of Twitter, Mr. Jack Dorsey, and the CEO, and they both agreed that Twitter should not support permanent bans on accounts unless it involves bots or spam or scams. Yeah. Now again, former President Donald Trump was banned from Twitter. It was that decision. And the Twitter cited the risk of further incitement of violence due to what happened on January the 6th. I want to bring in our culture crew on Tuesdays. We are joined by Lise Winnie, host of Millennials Anonymous podcast that can be heard on all podcast streaming platforms. And we are also joined by Iman Heath, who is an activist entrepreneur as well. Iman, Lise, always good to talk to you on Tuesdays. How are you ladies this afternoon?
I'm well. How are you?
I'm good. Iman, good to see you again.
Right. I'm better. See my
eyes. So this was the big breaking story that's happened that everybody is talking about around the country. And I think, Lise, I'm going to start with you. I think people had an inkling that this would be Elon Musk's stand, like this would be his decision. But we were all kind of waiting, trying to say, okay, is he really going to allow him on or not? But what do you think that Elon Musk was saying? I know he says that it was a morally bad decision. What do you really think is behind this? Is it the fact that President Trump said that he would stay initially just a few weeks ago? He said, look, I'm going to stay. I don't need Twitter. Even if Elon Musk allows me back on, I'm going to stay on my own social media, Truth Social.
Yeah, and I think he will. I think for a while at least, Donald Trump is going to stay on Truth Social because it only makes sense. Like, you can't have your biggest following on Twitter. You know, he's not making any money off of that. When it comes to a moral stance, now, here's the thing. I know a lot of people are upset about this. And Elon Musk, if he is, I don't know, is the deal final? Because technically he still had to get some extra financing. So I don't know if the deal is final. But if it is final and he is the owner of, of Twitter, it's a private company. He has the right to do that. If he wants to allow Donald Trump back on there, he did say that if there are certain tweets and posts that shouldn't be seen, they should be muted or deleted, but not necessarily ban the person altogether. he was concerned that you're alienating a bunch of people. Elon Musk is about money. Have you seen what he has done with cryptocurrency? Anything that he says is like, oh, go buy this tree coin, and then people go out and buy it, and then he pulls all his money out. Like, he's about the money. And if you're alienating the middle half of the country, you can't sell ads to them. So I think a lot of this has to do with he's a businessman.
So it's all about the dollars and cents.
Yeah, absolutely.
Is that what? And see, and that's the thing about it, Iman. Like, stop trying to cloak it into something bigger and much more divine, right? Like, just say, hey, look, yeah, we need him back on. He makes good money for us. I mean, I don't know. I know he probably would never say that. I know business people don't say that. They always like, oh no, it's a morally. I mean, because we're not looking to Elon Musk for moral leadership and guidance and direction.
Not at all. But I just want him to think of the possible backlash that can come behind it. If he's showing support of Trump, you have our anti-trumpets and Trumpettes that would have an issue with that. It could cause a lot of controversy. He could lose money if people withdraw from being active on Twitter. But at the same time, Team Trump and Trumpettes will hop back on Twitter. So it's like a balance you have to do. But I definitely agree with Lisa. It's all about the bag. It's all about the money. Donald Trump is the publicity, attention person you need when it comes to bringing his followers on. So I think it's a good business move, but it's going to be some backlash to it.
All right, so here's the situation now. The way this whole process has been going is that Elon Musk put his bid in. He brought, he was able to raise the money. Twitter's board approved the $44 billion deal. Mm-hmm. Now it goes to a shareholder vote, right? And so that vote hasn't been determined as of yet, but most likely, Iman and Lise, it's going to be approved because he got the money for it, right? He's got the commitments. He's been getting like letters of commitments, these pledges, sort of, essentially from all of these banks and other places and other investors. So he's done that. But the thing I think is very interesting is I think it's more, and I tend to think that, yes, this is a business move because even though Truth Social has not been doing very well, keeping one of the biggest loudmouths on social media off of your platform onto another platform, you want to intercept that, right? Like, so I think he knows that Donald Trump says, oh, I'm going to stick to my platform. And so Elon Musk is like, well, why stick it to your platform, buddy? We can all talk and chat and tweet together. Come on, buddy.
And I'm interested. I don't know if we got Twitter's numbers yet, their earnings, because I think he's looking at this from a business perspective as well. Now, as Truth Social is not where it's at. Like, that's just what it is.
That's the truth about Truth Social.
That's the truth about it. But when you look at how fast Twitter accepted his bid, have you ever seen a company that's doing amazing? Go try to say, Coca-Cola, I'm going to give you $20 for the whole company if you sell it to me. And they go, okay, don't you go, wait a minute. Like, it wasn't nobody else. Like, I think he's thinking about that now. So in order for you to make money off of social media, you need to have ads. You have to have people. We are the product. When something is free, you're the product. And so he needs more people on the platform. And Donald Trump does bring people on the platform. And for all the people out there saying this is against the First Amendment rights, it's a private company. That the First Amendment protects you against the government. So the government can't censure you, but this is a private company. So they do have the right to block people or censor people if they choose to do so. Now, I don't know if we will see a reversal that Trump will say, I'll come back to Twitter because
we will.
I don't know. He says he won't, but this will be interesting. And I think that's what Elon Musk is doing. I think he's just trying to drum up attention for Twitter. He bought, like I said, I don't know what the numbers look like yet, but he brought something that they didn't give any pushback. Where did they do that at? Like, have you ever seen a big company where they just say, "Oh, you want to pay what for real? No, okay, yeah,
You mean you talking about the pushback from who? The
Twitter,
company?
like Twitter just went, okay. Like,
well,
he
they
put
had
up a
initial
number.
pushback. Remember now, when he said he wanted to buy the company, they tried to create a situation where it'd be very hard for him to do so. Like they put a cap, I think, on the number of the amount of stocks that he.
They didn't want him to have control over it.
They didn't want him to have control of it.
It wasn't the money though. That's the part where I was like, really?
Okay.
Like there was no one else trying to bid for Twitter. So usually when you have companies like this,
please, nobody pulling out $44 billion out the back.
He didn't even have $44 billion. Didn't he have like $3 billion in liquid assets? The rest of
he
it
had
is
$3 billion.
stock.
He got
I mean, the band is going to space.
He put 8 to 9 billion, if I'm not mistaken. He took out 8 to 9 billion from his stocks with Tesla, and he put in and pretty much put it up on Twitter as well.
Risky.
So he's putting his own money into the conversation, right? Then he's gone to investors, some of your major top banks, and he was like, "Oh, okay, cool, we'll do it." So it's all about that, but it's still and it may not be a sweetheart deal. I mean, we've been having this conversation about whether Elon Musk is really going to make Twitter profitable, because that's the big thing, like about social media. Yeah, it could be all of the other stuff, but it has to be profitable in order for it to win. And what Jack Dorsey and his team has been able to do is make it profitable. Now, once they got into the space of trying to moderate the content and trying to deal with bad actors like Donald Trump and other folks who use the platform to create violence or to incite violence, then it's kind of like uncharted territory. You never had that. And I think that's what we have to keep in mind.
He's going to have to balance between freedom of speech and not harping on that portion so much as to have some type of boundaries or control, because to have a free Twitter, or be able to tweet whatever, however, and say whatever, however, it still needs to have some type of boundaries, because again, that can incite a community of violence, that can incite more rage and more divide that we already have. Like, to think of the things I know on Facebook, you can't even type the word gay. You will go to Facebook jail typing the word. So it's certain boundaries, I think, that should be had. No one should be banned, but he has to be careful not to take the freedom of speech thing and blow it up too far. Because people, y'all know how people go. It'll go completely left. Racial slurs, ignorance towards the LGBT community. It'll open a can of worms of a lot of things that we really don't need at this time. We're divided enough.
Well, see, that's the thing. Again, if you're using your social media platform as a space as a moral compass, like that is totally to me, that's not even what people brings people to Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and all of that. Nobody's looking for these spaces to be a moral compass. They just want to
at all. It's drama. Everybody wants to
post
drama.
pictures. I mean, you know what I mean? Like
when Boosie said what he said on Instagram, he blew up.
Yeah.
So it's people go to the drama, and that's another reason why Elon Musk is he wants to bring on Donald Trump, because people run to the drama. It entertains us. It's entertainment.
Yeah, I think he wants popularity in the space of social media. It is very hard. Every day something else is popping up, whether you have TikTok, something else, and this one and that one. So you have to constantly keep people's attention. If I'm being honest, Twitter's the one place where I can't, the retweeting of the tweet, it's just like algebra to me. Like, I hate Twitter. But I mean, it's where you need to be. Like, if you really want to reach out to a company or something, this is where all the cool kids hang out. They hang out on Twitter. So you want to have the most popular.
It depends. I don't know, Lise, because I understand why you would say that, but I don't know, because I know there are a number of, Generation Xers, millennials that are like, Twitter's for old people. Twitter's for politicians entertainers, and corporate America. It's
Are
not
we the old
for.
people?
It's not for.
We all.
It's not
well,
for
I'm
the,
old.
the
You're
quote
not
unquote
old,
the
but
regular
I'm
man
old.
or woman.
Yeah, I don't think that. I think if you want to be seen by a company, like if you want them to get, you want to get their attention, you need to be on Twitter, not on Instagram, not
Right.
on Facebook. You want to be on Twitter. So that's what I mean by the cool kids, even though I don't really believe in this hierarchy of society
Yeah.
that we've created. But that's what I'm talking about. It should be interesting, like I said, to see how this plays out in the long run as far as freedom of speech, because again, this is a private company. This is not a government run platform. If that was the case, then we could start having those conversations. That's like if you go to a baby shower and they say, don't say baby, you can't say, you're infringing upon my rights. Like you can't do that because this is a private, little party. I do think he's on to something though, as far as what is being banned, because sometimes people get banned on these social media platforms because the platform itself doesn't necessarily like it, or you don't like it. It doesn't mean that they shouldn't be able to speak, because they're not really organizing in these spaces like they are, on this black web. Like that's where these people, 4chan and all those places, that's where they're starting to organize. And I don't want to push these people off where you can't see them. If you shut your door and you closed off to the public, we can't see what you're doing. So that's my concern as well, because at least these platforms are somewhat monitored. You can somewhat track it. So if somebody puts something on there, at least you know who said it. Now we do need to get rid of the bots, but
all right. I'm gonna get to that point, Lise.
Okay.
I'm gonna let you have that point. But I have a big butt. Not like, of course not like, but I have a big butt.
Okay. Do you? You got a
Yes,
big butt?
I
You
do.
cannot lie.
On?
You got a big butt. You cannot lie.
Because look, I mean, you got this stuff. Like, I don't know what's on it. I don't know what's on your timeline, or like you say, you detest Twitter. When I'm on Twitter, you know what I'm saying? I'm coming across all types of people, right? Mm-hmm. All types of people, different philosophies. And I don't want to see that. I'm going to be honest with you. Like, I don't want to see racist hate speech. And I don't want to see that. Like, that's not good. Look, there was a New York Times piece, and I think we're going to talk about this on the show.
Okay.
At some later point. But they just, New York Times, they just put out this article saying the impact of social media on adolescents and how they view the world. And I'm like, and how basically social media has negatively affected young people starting from the age of 10 all the way up to 18. I think the same thing can be said for adults as well, for us, that once we start to consume, and as much as we like to truly believe that we are all quote unquote strong and that we can all make, rational decisions and we can all have clear headed and judge and, we're not judgy and all of that. Like, there is something that once somebody says something, or once you read something that is disparaging, racist, or very offensive, it does mess with you. Like, we got to be real about it. Like, it gets to your psyche about this human being, who this human being would, like the person, like the community that this human being is coming from, the world that we're all living in. It messes with you. Like, when I hear racist speech, it's like, damn, this person really think like this.
Yeah, but I think on Twitter he says with the bullying, he's going to get rid of bullying. You can't do that.
Then how you wait a minute?
Yeah, how can you control?
How are you doing that and then you allow Donald Trump back?
I see, because this is what he said. He was going to try to pipe down on the bullying on the site by muting and deleting those posts. So even though Donald Trump may be on there, we might not see anything he posts anyway, because maybe they'll all get deleted. We don't know. But they're saying that that's what they're going to be doing. So it's not that they're going to ban people, because you can't completely ban a person. He was saying that taking away those tweets. Now that to me seems impossible. But that's what he's saying.
Yeah, because the question is who controls what gets deleted or what gets muted, or what are the guidelines to having your tweet deleted or muted? Like, it's too gray. This is way too gray.
It's too gray, and it's too risky. Like, the country is not at a good place right now. Like, okay, for example, today is Tuesday. Right now in Nebraska and Wisconsin, they're having their primaries. Both primaries, Donald Trump endorsed candidates for those respective offices in those two states, right? If Donald Trump's candidates win, then it adds to the level of influence that he has on the GOP. We know that. He's allowed back on social media. It opens the door for even more stuff. And that's the part about it. I want to share this is what Elon Musk had to say about this whole idea of democracy. And this is why this is like I don't know whether this is just BS or this is something. But Keenan, let's post this quote, what he said about democracy and free speech. He said this, folks, and I think this is really interesting. He said free speech is the bedrock of a functioning democracy. Keenan, we could post that. He said free speech is the bedrock of a functioning democracy, and Twitter is the digital town square where matters vital to the future of humanity are debated. I don't agree.
I completely, honestly, I
don't agree
with that freedom of speech, because when you start censoring people, you too can be I think that's the part that people are not realizing. If you start to censor people, right, you too get wrapped up in the censorship. I know a couple of people that saying I'm blocked on Facebook and I'm blocked on Instagram, and because I just said this, like, Iman just said, if you type in a word, they will automatically block you. So you too get banned. So then it becomes who does get a chance to speak. And so we do need to hear, because like you said, you don't want to see it on your timeline. The benefit is you can kind of unfollow people so that those things don't come up on your timeline. But also, it doesn't mean that the people aren't saying this. I would rather know this is who you are than to be in a job interview
or
sitting in there with you and not know.
But see, is that like with Donald Trump, the way we already know who Donald Trump is. After 4 years of having him in office, dude, I know you well. I know you well. Matter of fact, I know you so much that I know you're gonna be like, you told us a couple of weeks ago you're not coming back on. You lying. You coming right back on this piece. You know you are. Stop playing. You're not getting the same type of response. You're not getting the same level of follows and followers that you're getting on your own social media platform. Stop lying. You lying. So we know people, you know what I mean? But again, it's like I'm not trying to encourage people to be in their own an echo chamber. I'm not encouraging that. But there has to be a line drawn somewhere. This dude is getting rewarded. Here he is, a former president, is getting rewarded to be on one of the biggest platforms of any technology, right? After he tried to overturn the government. Now, look, I'm not all of USA government type of guy, but that seems like that's a very, very serious offense for a former president. And then you get kicked off, come back on.
But Twitter is not the government. This is not twitter.gov. This is twitter.com, which means that this is owned by private institutions, which means that they have the right to say, hey, he can come on here. He can speak on here, because it is not run by the government. And I think a lot of people are not seeing that. Like with the freedom of speech, it is a private corporation. Like when people get mad at TikTok, I was like, it's a Chinese-based there's but so much you can do. When you go on these companies, you sign up for their policies and procedures. None of us read, because none of us read them, that they have the right to, one, your information is theirs. Okay, because they're going to sell it because it's free. So they got to sell something. Twitter is not as big on ads. So you know that they have to be giving information somewhere. You know what I mean? So all of this matters when you're talking about who gets to speak and who doesn't, because these are private corporations. You don't want somebody coming down and saying, hey, on the Black Star Network, you can't say this, because this is owned by a private corporation. That's kind of, it's a double-edged sword.
Look, let me just break it down to you. Facebook, 3 billion monthly active users. Instagram, 1 billion active users. YouTube, 2.3 billion active users. Twitter, which is one of the is number 14 on the list, underneath of Pinterest, Tumblr, and Reddit. But Twitter comes in with 225 million users.
And
if you allow Donald Trump, he's probably going to add a few million. I get it on a business side, but there has not been any consequence or any consequences against this guy. And I'm all cool with that. I'm cool with no consequences against Donald Trump.
Mm-hmm.
Don't bring consequences on this side to us, though.
Right.
Don't go hard on people, you know. Don't go hard on anybody else if you don't go hard on Donald Trump.
Yeah, I mean,
so if you allow Donald Trump on, you got to allow Minister Farrakhan on. You got to allow other people who you deem to be controversial,
mm-hmm.
who you deem to be crossing a line. You got to allow them back on. If that's the way it is, if this is the digital town square where everything is of great importance is being debated, you got to allow everybody back on.
I don't know if they're all banned on Facebook or if they're banned on Twitter, but I think his goal is to get everybody back. Like on Facebook, I know Alex Jones of InfoWars is banned. I'm pretty sure if he's not on Twitter, he probably will be allowed back on Twitter with all of the things that he's put out there, the fake information that just he goes with. So I'm pretty sure that's what will happen. But again, we as Americans, we as the consumer have to have some level of discretion of what we know is true. We have to be able to discern between this is true, this is false, this is bad. And we can't allow the private corporations and companies to be the one that tell us who can speak and who cannot.
No, we're not. We know we're not. But I think to that point, these private companies and corporations are getting getting our data.
Mm-hmm.
In some ways, they're getting our dollars, right? We're paying for it in some way, some other way outside of money.
Mm-hmm.
But more importantly, if these companies are supposed to work in the best interest, like, let's keep it real, we might have to have a different conversation where these social media platforms are set aside or they're in a different category than your normal corporation, because they're dealing with telecommunications, they're dealing with bringing people in, like their whole business model has to be seen as different.
Mm-hmm.
Rather than what you would normally see from like a company like General Motors or you know what I mean, like a Coca-Cola.
They have an ethical, I think a bigger ethical or moral standard that should be put on them because of the amount of contact we have with these social media sites.
Yeah,
I agree.
Yeah. We're looking at a very, very serious misinformation campaign facing Black voters. Black voters are being targeted across the country for making sure that it dissuades Black voters from going out to vote, dissuades Black voters about who about the candidates and where they stand. And so I wanted to have a conversation about this because we're finding that this is such a problem, and especially in this important, critical midterm election, we can't afford to be lied to anymore. So I wanted to have a discussion about this, and I'm going to bring in Culture Crew member Rashad Staton, who is a nonprofit organizer and community leader, and get his thoughts on this. Rashad, thank you so much, brother, for checking in and being a part of the discussion.
Hey, peace, brother. Happy Thursday as always, man. For the culture.
Happy Thursday. Happy Thursday, brother.
Yes, sir.
I want to post this. Keenan, I want to post this because I think we need to look at how serious this misinformation campaign really is. According to Representative G.K. Butterfield, who's a Democrat out of North Carolina, he said the practice of misinforming voters, quote, has been weaponized and targeted at communities of color by racist and anti-democratic actors who seek to intimidate voters of color and discourage them from participating in the democratic process. He also said that voters of color are targeted with disinformation narratives specifically designed to appeal to each community's concerns in ways that will alienate voters and suppress turnout. Now, here's my thing, and I think that the representative is right on target. But I also think, Rashad, that, you know, asking people to vote at a time like this, where some people feel like their interests aren't being addressed, where they feel like their grievances aren't being taken seriously, that it's not the low numbers or the turnout is not just about the information that people may read about or see on social media or anything like that. It's just really coming from the government. People are just not happy with their government.
Yeah.
And I feel like we're not adding that into the conversation. Like we're like black people love to vote, man. We know that, you know that, I know that. We love to vote. We love to talk about how much we love to vote. We love to say that we tell our children to vote. We love to talk about the history of our people when it comes to voting. But we're not talking about the fact that it's not about those things. It's really about the government's lack of performance or the government's decision to not address the issues that are facing Black people in this country. Therefore, the government has created, dissuaded, and uninterested voters. Not the narrative, the government itself. What's your take on that? Am I wrong on that or not?
I think you can ring the bell right there. I think you just hit it on the nail. Like you said, this is not a place where we can just identify one particular problem as it is the sole reason, right? I think what you said as well is the country, and not even specifically to Black people, but the country themselves have a low morale and confidence in where our government and our elected officials have done since their election, since what they have put as a prioritization to their campaigns and what they have done since being elected. It's one thing about Black folks, like you said, is we take pride in voter engagement and civic engagement once we are informed and once we feel as though that we are part of. So the idea of that sole problem being a disinformation campaigning and the specification of targeting us to sway us from being civically engaged, that's one of the many different factors that play into this particular round, whether we will be in these long lines or we'll be sending in our mail-in ballots and things of that sort. The reality of itself is, at a certain point in time, we as a people are going to awaken and come to the fact that, hey, some of these things that we have been doing, we either have to just completely move away from, reconstruct our own governmental systems, or reform it in a space where we see that what we want has been prioritized and we see implemental change in real time. The fact that none of this is surprising me. I believe since the Reconstruction era, when we did see some of the highest representation of Black folks immediately after slavery, there has been a campaign of different disinformation. If you know that a Black vote can sway an election, why would whom that wants to play this political game not go after the ones that have some of the strongest voting power? That is not to say that we're not already aware of it, right? But in the sense of we are aware of that, as well as understanding that we still have not gotten our 40 acres and a mule, or whatever we want to say is our goal and our gains of being civically engaged.
I mean, yeah, we still haven't got that. We definitely still haven't gotten that.
We still ain't got our student loans forgiven either, right? So it's more like we can go down the list of things that have been promised to us, and we can go, and if we had a checklist, I'm certain that majority of those checklists will still be unchecked, right? So that's the reality of it. It's like, when do we come to a reality that the system that we are being engaged with has still not done their part to the population that they often try to garnish votes and try to get us to stay in this democratic process, and they come and they knock on our doors and they rally behind us and they create these buzzwords. And then when they are seated, the same people that help get them in office or tip the voting scale, they are the same ones that are least prioritized when it comes to policy, when it comes to policy reform, and when it comes to us creating new legislation and opportunities.
Let me just share this with you, folks. Since 2020, according to the Brennan Center for Justice, which is a nonpartisan voting rights organization at NYU Law School, legislatures in 49 states, Rashad, have introduced more than 400 bills that Democrats and other critics contend would restrict access to the ballot and disproportionately affect voters of color. 49 states, 400 bills to restrict access to voters of color since 2020. So we're talking about 2 years. And that number continues to rise. I'm talking about the number of bills continue to rise, even in 2022. My thinking is, and this is what Representative Butterfield also said, he said misinformation, disinformation, and malinformation. I don't even know what malinformation is. I guess it's bad information. You know what I mean? He said that is all a threat to our democracy and the free, fair, and equitable access to the ballot every voter is entitled to. See, now we're getting to a point, Rashad, that everything is a threat to our democracy. You know what else is a threat to our democracy? Not telling the American people the truth about what's going on with their country. You know what else is a threat to our democracy? Promising one thing on a campaign trail and then don't just totally disregarding it once you get into office. Those are the things that threaten our democracy. Look, Melvin Wright put it, he's one of our watchers. He said, our vote matters to get politicians elected, but afterwards, our voices seem to be ignored. When politicians don't win, the lack of black votes is blamed.
Right. Damn if we do, damn if we don't. Damn if we do, damn if we don't. That's it.
Like Taylor said, likewise, the news and other media outlets used to be a trusted source. Now I question the motives because everybody has been lying to us. If the government is lied, what they call the media, the fifth, what they say that we're like the fifth institution, the fifth state. If the media is lies, right, to fit their agenda. And these are the two things that we have been conditioned to believe are trusted sources, the government and the media.
Right.
If those two institutions lie,
right,
or they don't tell the full story, or their storytelling is so thwarted from our view of what's going on, or devoid of our view of what's going on, what do you expect people to do? People are going to become disenfranchised, man. And I'm not talking about just brand new young voters. I'm talking about people that had voted in many different elections across this country. And then come 2020, 2022. I mean, here's one of my big pet peeves, and then I'm Rashad, certainly let you speak on it, bro. If Donald Trump is on the ballot in 2024, if he's allowed to get on the ballot, what does that say? To not just black people in this country, but what does that say to any American? That you can have a whole criminal, whole person that has
the highest position of office.
Here's a man that has been complicit in treason, and sedition, but he still can run for office. But you saying, well, it ain't about the vote. Let's stop lying to people. Say, oh, it's just about the vote. Y'all need to come out and vote. Hell no, give us something to vote for.
That's it. That's it. If we've been using our voice to power for so long and we understand our power and influence to the vote and how we as a people can sway in any electoral cycle, or midterms to any particular ones, right? When we get to a place of dissatisfaction, why would we continue to play the same game? At what point do we allow the accountability to go back on those same people that have perpetuated, have actually been a part of disseminating the disinformation, and say, look, this is on you all. When it comes to the vote, and we've been voting and we have been keeping you all in office, or we have swayed how the offices go, and we step away from it and say, hey, you all have not done your part. You all have not been accountable to our needs. So we're going to step away from it, and you all elect someone, but don't try to victimize the victim. Don't try to play the game on those that have become socially aware, politically aware that, hey, you all have not done your job. The disinformation one, of course, that leads to disenfranchisement, but that is something that we have always been in existence in, of not being as politically aware or understanding our political power as a community. But we do know that when it's time to vote, that we'll stand in those long lines, that we have risked our lives, that we have put other people's priorities above the priorities of ourselves in the betterment of this country, and hoping that we will be a part of these new legislations and policies, that it will make the whole country much greater in itself. But we have not seen that. We have seen this continuous cycle of a political game that has played game on us for far too long. And one thing about this information that's shared in this article is, not surprisingly, a lot of information when we come to a reality that, hey, this country and the media is finally starting to recognize and tell the truth about all the mishaps and all the misfortunes that they have imposed on us. None of that is surprising to me. When I read articles like this, I say, I'll be goddamn, about time you told the truth, because we already been living it. Right. So that is one. But the thing is with this, Faraji, me and you know this because we've been doing this work for so long. We go out every single day, and this is a platform like that has working, that works tirelessly and diligently to provide factual information in a space that is digestible for our people to receive it, employ it, and implement it in their daily lives. Even this recently, I had a conversation with a member in my own family about our gubernatorial candidates in the state of Maryland. And the conversation that was one of their strongest defense was disinformation. But I had to be intentional on how to discredit that information, that it doesn't sway them completely away from the candidate that they didn't know was probably the best for them. Right. So it was one is like, all right, where did you get this information from? And what point did you go and research this information to find out if it was true? Is there other narratives out there? And if you decide to not to go with this candidate and go for someone else that you think is the best of the least evils, what priorities or what track records do they show that they will probably be of a better fit for the benefit of you personally, your community, and the outcomes of this future? We know when we employ you on the grounds to increase voter registrations, to support certain campaigns, and to create campaign messaging, we know that we have to be even more intentional around cultural relativity, information, and making it cool that they can understand that politics is as usual as us just having a conversation and exchange about what we want. This information has been in existence and perpetuating Black votes since the Reconstruction era. We've seen the emergence of it again during the Civil Rights Movement. We've seen it again during the Black Lives Matter movement. And we will see it, unfortunately, again in our next social movements that will be forthcoming, because yet this country has yet to realize and hold a moral fiber that my great ancestor, our great ancestor, James Baldwin, has said for many years. Until this country address the moral fiber and hold a moral standard, they will never, America will never take heed of its dream, and its dream has always been alive.
The infamous Kiki. Kiki, you always check in. You said we are in a culture war and y'all keep talking about healthcare and education, all real issues, but they don't care about any of that. That's why we got the show called The Culture, because I don't think anybody, and I agree with you, Kiki, I think that we undervalue how important culture is. Culture being the way that we do a thing, you know, is based upon our attitudes, is based upon our values. I don't think we understand how powerful culture really is. So when we, and I think to your point, Kiki, like if they're playing a culture war. They're trying to redefine how our story is being told. They're trying to play it's a culture war about how to depict us in a certain way. Just like around this abortion issue, how it's going to be interesting to see how both the Democrats and the Republicans package this abortion issue to play to their base and to their agenda. So yes, the culture war is very real. The culture war, I think the culture war is probably more tangible and more significant than the actual war about health, education, voting rights. It's the culture that we got to go to. And it's oftentimes, Rashad, the culture is not being talked about. We talk about policy as if policy don't come out from the minds and the hearts of men and women. Of people. Before you even get to a law, there had to be an attitude. That attitude had to harden into a belief. That belief had to be expressed and be fulfilled, so you create a law. Because based on the culture, if you grew up in a racist household, if you grew up in a space that looked down on people, that attitude is going to be your predominant attitude all throughout life, unless or until some new knowledge comes in to debunk all of that. An awakening happens, right? And I think we're seeing Black people get to that place, and we're certainly seeing white people get to that place. But I think we downplay the culture too little until we get into conversations about like, oh, Black history and not being included in certain textbooks and all of that stuff. The culture is so important, Rashad, that I think that if we start to include that as part of the national conversation, it ain't about prices of medicine, it ain't about the curriculum in the schools. It's about the fact of what is the culture around education in the Black community. What's the culture of healthcare when it comes to our relationship to big pharma and the constituents? Those are the things I think matter. What's your take?
Yeah, I think you nailed it on the head. If we use our culture as the pinnacle of what keeps us grounded and what is our DNA as a people to the point that it can't be attested, then we are hitting on that this gem that defines us as being God's children. And I think that's powerful, and in which I think that's the name in itself of like the culture for this show. It's because we are often talking about the culture and how the culture dynamically can influence all the different social issues, the social determinants, and the things that show up in our lives. And the way that we perpetuate and live through our culture is how we're going to often try to address the things that is forefront to us. But even when I'm thinking about these, it's like now we have this research that is showing that there has been targeted disinformation, and we know that this to be true. What are we going to do about it? Right. And it's not more of the people that is receiving it on their end, because they're not the ones that's creating it. But similar to what we're seeing every day when we go on our social medias and we want to post anything that's related to COVID vaccinations or COVID information, the federal government has regulated things that populate and say this information may not be true. And it then sends you to another back-end database or a website that then gives you the credible information that they identify as credible to give you the factual information regardless of who is posting it. Can we get that same type of oversight when it comes to voter information, when it comes to political issues? If we have the capacity to do that in another lane, and we know that this can be just as impactful and it is just as potentially harmful to the people in this country, because this is correlating directly to our elected officials, our policies, and how we show up every day. Why can't those same systems be translated into a place of any time that someone being a ghost account or being account by someone that is, I call it the Twitter gangsters, that's just misleading us? Why can't that be debunked by you all placing in another tab below to say, hey, you might want to double check the validity of this information? And then until they do that, then we can, the same thing that's coming from our elected officials that's saying, hey, we know that that's existing. You have not used your political power to balance out that beam. And until we do that and we use these large scale things that we deem as effective in all facets of our life, then we're picking and playing of what we think and have prioritized of what truly matters. And I don't think that they still take the black vote serious. And they can, when the black vote doesn't turn out to swing the pendulum back to the Democratic or the Republican Party, of course they're going to blame us. And at that same time, we should not accept that bunch.
Hey, look, if they don't take our vote serious, then we need to really figure out. And I'm not just talking rhetoric here. I'm saying we need to figure out. We can't keep giving up our vote and getting nothing in return. So, because what's the point of voting?
Do we just not vote? And if we do not vote, will we be okay?
If we keep giving it up and you don't get nothing back, it's like being in a relationship, baby. You keep making an effort, but the man or the woman, the person you're in a relationship with, they're not giving you no effort back. They're not showing no consistency. What's the point of staying in the relationship?
Better to just be alone and love yourself.
Hey, man, I could do bad all by myself, baby.
And that's how we got to talk politics. Using cultural language.
And I know people want to believe that things can change, and I truly believe things can change. Trust and believe, and trust and know that as a person in my role and position, I'm not doing this because I don't think things can change. I believe so. But I'm also looking at the relationship, and I'm also looking at the way things are currently. If they are not taking our vote seriously, then why are we keep banging our head like, oh man, when are they going to take it seriously? When are they going to take it seriously? When are they going to count our vote? When are they going to count our vote? And I know some of you are probably like, well, Faraja, you're telling people not to vote. I'm saying let's look at this and let's be very strategic about this.
And how we place our votes.
I'm not saying, look, I voted in many elections. My people didn't always, the person I voted for didn't always win. But I'm tired of being in a relationship where we making an effort, and we get subpar effort from the other side. And then we're expected to keep going all out.
Yes, sir.
Only to get our hearts broken. And I'm not trying to make light of it, but I remember the movie What Love Got to Do with It when Larry Fishburne's character Ike Turner hit Tina Turner's friend in that diner. She said, you only got to hit me once, Ike. How many times we gonna get hit?
You know what?
I don't know.
I say one thing is, and this will be my closing one, is a call to action, right? If we can't hold our elected officials accountable to be in our communities throughout the entirety of their time in position, right? Does not just be on the campaign trail when it's time to garnish the vote, but once you're elected and we see you in your communities, you're still holding information sessions, you're still holding the brief sessions and things of that sort to keep your community informed of what you are trying to push and legislate and push forward for the betterment of your communities. Then look, when it comes to that space after your term is up and you're going for re-election, you can't expect them to come back out again. And secondly, what we have to do, and that's a call to action to the organizations that I lead and I support nationally, locally, and statewide. We as a people, after gaining and raising the awareness around civic engagement and voter registration, we as community-based organizations, civic organizations, larger institutions have to do our part in keeping the conversation going year after year, month after month, with programming that informs our people of their voting power, that informs them of the political system, how policies are passed, when the House is in session, when the General Assemblies are in sessions, who are actually have power to appoint certain commissions, to fund certain policies, to fund certain educational systems. We have to have that thing. And one of the things is why we're doing it ourselves, for Rogers, while we're continuously trying to activate youth-led candidate forums, right? Because these young people are our next larger voting population. And if they become informed early on, they will make informed decisions as they become older, become more civically engaged, and grow into adulthood. So if we can't change the mindset of those that are elders and those that have become impatient with the political process, we must start from the young. And that's what Frederick Douglass has said. And some things has not been broken. We must build up and modernize those blueprints so that we can maintain and sustain a culture that is beneficial to us as a people.
Bro, I appreciate that. And I want to be very clear. I'm not saying to never vote, folks. I'm simply saying be strategic. I think you should vote locally. I think you should vote for your congressperson. I think you should vote. You know, one of our watchers said that jury pools, forensics accountant, jury pools are comprised of registered voters. Yes, you can still be a registered voter. You can vote locally. But if Black people were to sit out this next presidential campaign, this next presidential election, what do you think will happen? I'm just posing a question. What do you think will happen? Now, the midterms, yes, because they're a little bit more closer to home. But the national, I think we should have a conversation about it. I think we should have a very, very serious, real conversation about it. Because I'm tired of being in an abusive relationship. That's where I am. I'm tired of being in an abusive relationship. We have to organize and galvanize our Black political power. And at this point, this cycle that we're in is not doing it. You're not going to empower the next generation. You're not going to bring new people into the fold. You're wishing upon a star that change is going to come. You're waiting on a mystery God that your reality is going to be different. Vote locally, but should we vote nationally? If we're talking about really getting the attention of this government and this country to let them know you are not going to keep taking Black vote for granted. Oh, I wanted to talk about this. Lise brought this to my attention, folks. I had one thing in mind, but Lise brought something to my attention. And look, check this out. I was just like, I was going back and forth, like, do we have a big conversation or smaller conversation? But I was like, you know what? Let's have a smaller conversation. This is Lisa's idea. So Lisa shared with me that Walmart has a Juneteenth. They had a Juneteenth ice cream that they released under their brand called Juneteenth ice cream. But it came under their brand of Great Value. If you've been to Walmart, you know the Great Value brand is Walmart's brand. But they had a Juneteenth ice cream, and apparently this ice cream was so offensive that Walmart decided to take it off the shelves, calling for us to ask the question, you know, when you're talking about commercializing off of Juneteenth, like what is the boundary when you commercialize off of Juneteenth? Now, here's the thing about this ice cream. Take a look at that. Look at this. Look at this, y'all. Y'all see that? They apologize for selling Juneteenth ice cream, but let me just say that did we not say that this was going to happen? The moment Juneteenth became an official federal holiday, did we not say we're going to start to see some wild stuff happening? Now, y'all probably thought that this was going to happen on a Keenan, please show this again. Just show a little picture again. This is Walmart. I just wanted you to show this ice cream tub again. What is this? Half a gallon? No, this is what, a pint?
A pint. Yeah, a pint.
This is the pint of Juneteenth ice cream. And I'm not saying it to be funny. I'm bringing this up because as we get closer to the holiday, we're going to see a lot of people. Look at this. Look at this. I want to just hold a picture there. On the side, y'all can read the side. Share and celebrate African American culture, emancipation, and enduring hope. by eating ice cream?
Yeah, see, here's the thing on this, because a
All right,
lot of
Lisa,
people
go ahead. Come on.
been going through this on social media, and I've been seeing it. And that's why I sent it to you, because I've seen people post this, and there's like two sides of the spectrum. Yes, for the longest time, people have been pushing for this to be a federal holiday. It became a federal holiday. Once you make it a federal holiday, it becomes fair game. So my thing is, you need to be careful what you want or what you're asking for. And this is why I always say up front, be sure what you're asking for. Just like the 4th of July and all of these other holidays that have become federal holidays, even like the commercialization of Christmas and Easter. And Easter is not, I don't think it's a federal holiday, but you get my point. It's becomes commercialized, and they're going to sell it, and that is what capitalism is. And I think, unfortunately, when we wanted more people to celebrate it and you want more people to see it, this is what's going to happen. It's going to be sold in Walmart.
So people are saying, do we get a kickback from that? Like, do black folks get something as a result of this ice cream being sold? Like, shit, if Walmart's saying we're now introducing Juneteenth ice cream, where we are supporting, black young people, black youth, would it make a difference? Would it be a different conversation?
No.
If Walmart said the proceeds of our Juneteenth ice cream will go to black youth and teaching them STEM, would that make a difference, Iman?
It could make a difference, but I'm trying to understand the concept of the ice cream. Like, let's say they have 4th of July ice cream. They'll have vanilla ice cream with like blue, red, and white sprinkles in it. So what does Juneteenth ice cream look like? Is it a bunch of double chocolate with extra chocolate chips and just black?
It's red.
Is it?
No, let's
like, what is this
now? Actually, the flavors might actually be good. Let me just share it. It's a
like the concept of just what the Juneteenth taste like. Like, what?
Let me tell you.
What would Juneteenth like be composed of?
Juneteenth is composed of a swirl of red velvet and cheesecake. That's what this ice cream flavor is. Red velvet and cheesecake.
So a lot of people were upset by that too, because they said it should have been butter pecan or maybe vanilla, since that was created by. Hold
on. What is this thing that black people have? What do we have with butter pecan? I love some damn butter pecan. I hate butter pecan.
Do you?
Yes, I do.
Yeah, I'm not a butter pecan.
I know I'm gonna lose my. I know people black. Every time you think about a black person, be like, yo, you give me some of that butter pecan. Be like,
mm-hmm.
You take you decided to butter pecan in there, ice cream. Like, come on, bro.
But it has some historical meaning to it. So maybe they should have got black people to, when they did this, maybe they should have had more black people in the room. Honestly, I don't think that would have made a difference. I think some people would have just been upset just in general to see this commercialized. But then again, the people in Texas, where this thing, it became a big thing, wanted to see this. So who am I to say that you shouldn't celebrate it on a mass scale? This is what they wanted.
Yeah, like I can say I'm not. I can't find offense in this. Like, it's like, really? Okay, why? I understand it being commercialized suddenly and celebrated suddenly because of the federal holiday. That could be offensive, but like, I'm not mad at the concept of creating ice cream celebration of Juneteenth. Like, I'm trying to figure out where to be upset at. Like,
here's the thing. Like, I think here for me, I think the offense is, if this is supposed to be, this is not just a holiday of ritual. This is like a holiday of historical. It's like a historical moment, right? This is a major, quote unquote, a major time in American history.
Correct.
Where you're talking about the last of our people who have been enslaved are finally free. That's a significant moment, right?
Correct.
According to the American history. So
what we asked for, though. Like we asked
for freedom, not ice cream.
That's right. But we
people
asked for to celebrate it on a bigger scale. Like if we start seeing Juneteenth flags and how they commercialize 4th of July.
But the 4th of July is not quote unquote a black holiday.
It's not.
Right.
So for example, like if we saw, and I mean we see this, I think we see this with Black History Month. I think companies have gotten a lot better in celebrating Black History Month. But if you saw a company be like, hey, come down to your local mattress discounter where we got that Black History mattress just for you, and while you're at it, you can make some black babies. You'd be like, what the hell?
We got the dashiki sheets in the back for you.
The dashikis, and you know what I'm saying? And then,
I don't think this to me doesn't. So the reason why, because if good people in Galveston, Texas, they celebrated this on a mass scale there. They really wanted more people to celebrate it. That's why this was pushed for a federal holiday. This goal to push was created and started by Black people. So who am I to say that no? Now, should Walmart have said, hey, let me find a black, now they do have other ice cream in Walmart, let me be clear, that actually is made by a Black ice cream maker. But you know how Walmart does. They always gotta have a name brand, and then they gotta have great value.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So I guess they was given, if you don't have, it was given the pennies.
Ben and Jerry's didn't do it. So Walmart said, hey, Ben and Jerry's, y'all can't do it. Y'all can't, Briar's, y'all can't do it. Turkey Hill, y'all can't do it. All right, bump it then. We got it. Now look, let me Janine checked in. Look, I don't like Janine sometimes because she always thinks she's funny.
Go ahead, Janine.
Janine said it gotta be strawberry chocolate and mint chocolate chip, red, black, and green. Janine, please stop.
That combo.
See, that's what I'm
Janine,
thinking. It's gonna be
stop.
like red, black, and
this you going look. This you going to post.
Hey,
Hey, butter pecan from Turkey Hill is the shit. Take his black card. No,
It is that. Listen, you don't eat. I'm gonna take it, Janine.
No.
I'm gonna take it. Give it to me. I need your mail by Saturday.
No
I
one
need
likes butter pecan.
No, nobody.
No, we Black. It's butter pecan. No.
Here's the thing. What I think is going to be the problem is that it opens the door. So if you have Juneteenth ice cream, then
have you haven't seen the napkins and the plates?
What's stopping you from being like, hey, we know Black people love sweet tea, Juneteenth sweet tea.
I'm glad it wasn't watermelon. Now, if it was watermelon, I would have been like,
now, that's where we got
to check this out, and then check this out, because I love watermelon, so I don't know. Like,
I do too.
I love watermelon. So if somebody said we having a Juneteenth holiday, sale, and watermelon chicken is on sale,
that's
twist just a little bit.
That's offensive.
Yeah. That's offensive.
If let me ask you this question. Let me ask y'all this question. If a black store were to have a Juneteenth sale, like a Black food market, and I don't know, they might be very, they're not too many Black food markets, but Black food markets say, hey, we got a Juneteenth sale. Would that make a difference?
I think
a Black market, a Juneteenth sale.
Yeah.
I don't see, because like I said, I'm on the other side of it. This is what we kind of asked for, like the people who wanted this to be mainstream, this is what we got. And there actually is, when I was looking, there actually is a Hanukkah ice cream. That's capitalism. I'm so sorry. I said it in the comments. She says they stay appropriating our culture. There's no Hanukkah Passover ice cream. Unfortunately, capitalism is terrible. Like, they're gonna capitalize.
No. It's not just terrible. But Black folks, our struggle has always been diminished, and we become the butt of the jokes.
We do. I do agree with that. That a lot of the times the things that come out for us, it seems rushed or not. We were not consulted. So then the stuff comes out and it's like, well, this doesn't really stand for, because if they were going to do it, at least talk to the people in Galveston and say, what flavor should this have been? What flavor are the flavors in the foods that you eat on Juneteenth? What are I think they should have done that and gone above and beyond instead of saying.
John, yeah, but to at least to your point, I don't think we should have any type of cookouts on Juneteenth. I don't think we should make it like that.
Why?
Huh?
What should
We
it
should
be?
have. I think Juneteenth is probably one of the very few holidays where we don't have to quote unquote go into celebration mode, but we should be in education mode. We should be like teaching our babies about the transatlantic slave. They don't know about slavery. They don't. Trust and believe.
Who don't know about slavery?
Now I'm talking about en masse. I think it's the perfect opportunity to be like, all right, y'all. July 4th, we always celebrating. Memorial Day, we celebrating. Birthdays, we celebrate for 2 years straight. You know what I mean? Depending on whose birthday it is.
That is facts.
You feel what I'm saying? Like, we always in celebration mode. And part of me is just like, yo, we don't have to celebrate. Let's celebrate by teaching these babies. These babies really don't know about the transatlantic slave trade. And I think we do a disservice by allowing this to be like, yeah, what we celebrating, mommy? What we celebrating, daddy? We you know, shit. Black people were free, and it's like they have no connection.
But that's what Juneteenth is, though. Like it was a celebration. They did. That's what it was. After it
was a celebration.
I know.
Go ahead, Iman. Go ahead.
I say we can do both. Both. It can be a celebration because that's what it was originally. Juneteenth was a celebration. Now we all aware that we are free. We are now. Everybody's gotten the news that we're free. Okay, cool. But I do understand your point as far as education, because children, especially I want to say middle school down to pre-K, kindergarten, they don't get the same dose of what slavery was that we did, or Jim Crow that we did. It's much softer now. It's an ice cream version. It's the Juneteenth ice cream version of what slavery actually was, that we knew of and we were taught. So I understand both perspectives, but make it celebration and eat. I found out a black man eating macaroni and cheese like 2 weeks ago. So I say celebrate and eat.
Yeah, but my thinking is, we always celebrating, and I get it. I'm trust and believe. I'm not trying to rain on anybody's parade here or anybody's picnic, but I'm just saying, when do we start educating? You know what I'm saying? Like what holiday outside of Black History Month, right? Most of us Black children, they know February is Black History Month. But if we want to drive home the point that Black history is every day of the year, and then this holiday comes around, then it's like, okay, because case in point, when Memorial Day comes around, do we talk about Black soldiers? No, most likely we don't. We just see it as a day off. When 4th of July come around, do we talk about Christmas addicts? No. Some of us probably don't even know who Christmas addicts is.
Right.
Definitely don't celebrate.
You know what I'm saying? Like we not. If these major holidays come around, this could be this is revolutionary. I'm thinking that when these major holidays come around for the country, that is also an opportunity for us to have some different conversations with our children and with each other. I mean, out of all the things, all of the ways that we can kind of, like, this country is saying, okay, Juneteenth, the end of slavery, of chattel slavery and all of these things, like, our level, it should be a day where we really edify the ancestors. It should be a day where we really educate. Now, I'm not trying to say there's no celebration in that, but one, this was like 2 years after the institution was officially over, right?
Right.
So a lot of our people were still left in that situation. And it's like, really, what are we celebrating when we didn't even get all of our people to know that the institution was over? There's nothing to celebrate. It was like, damn. It's, you know what I mean? That's how I get. It's like 2 years later, like, damn.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But I don't know. Like, I just like, if the only thing that we could force America to do is to give us little trinkets like ice cream or discounts or deals or stuff like that, like, we will never be taken seriously as a people. Like, we got to force and to ask for America to demand and say, look, like, this is an institution that you brought us in. Therefore, don't try to, our reparation is 30% off of a cup of coffee, or, you know what I'm saying, some ice cream. It's like, y'all need to do some real celebration. Like, for example, are we going to expect it to see, like in Baltimore, of course, you know, we have the AFRAM and the celebration of African-American history and culture and those things. But when you ask Black people, what is Black culture? What is Black history? Then it's just like 1,000 different answers, and that's fine. But at the end of the day, it's like we're still not on the same page about certain things that has happened to our people. And I think that just needs to be emphasized. That's all.
I agree with education. I agree that we need to do more education. I agree with you.
Juneteenth can be the start that we finally all get on the same page, at least for a holiday. I agree.
Yeah. Like Kwanzaa, I see more Black people finally getting into the celebration of Kwanzaa. Now, I feel like that's a great celebration. You know what I mean? When you go down, break down those principles and those things, like those are great celebration. But for this, it's like, it was a somber moment. You know what I mean? Like, look how long it took for us to even get an acknowledgement of that moment. They took to President Biden, and then look at what actually happened. It's like, it's a very somber moment. It's like, wow, man, some of our people were still left behind in that institution years after it was officially over. Right. And I don't know, like, it's just, Juneteenth rings different for me. It's not like 4th of July. It's not like any other holiday. It's like, man, that's a really sad situation.
A great deal of people.
Things here anyway, because
say it again.
We celebrate weird things here because the push was because Christopher Columbus had a day. We all know what Christopher Columbus then did. And so they were saying, if you can make that a federal holiday, why not Juneteenth? And this is what we got. What you get on Christopher Columbus Day, you get discounts, you get deals. And so maybe we made it less valuable by making it, a federal holiday. I don't know, but this is what a lot of people were pushing for.
Absolutely. Infamous Kiki, you in Texas, because she's saying that we have Juneteenth sales in Texas. Y'all killing me. We going to the parade on the 18th, and the club has Juneteenth bar crawl.
Okay.
Y'all killing me dead.
Yes, that's what I'm
telling you. Do your thing. Do your thing. Celebrate.
The good people of Galveston, Texas over there.
That's where we need to go, least. That's where we need to be at, least. That's where we need to be. With the Cowboys and the
Juneteenth bar crawl?
Why not?
You know some white people going to be up in the bar.
Look,
I'm celebrating Juneteenth bar crawl.
$2 shots of Henny. $2 shots of Hennessy. That's probably what's
that's right. That's right.
We deserve joy. I think black people deserve joy.
Let's celebrate our people by getting out of our minds. All right. Get intoxicated. Woo!
Oh,
woo! All right. I guess that's it. Folks, imagine this. A friend of yours, or really a colleague, has invited you to her wedding. Now, you know this colleague because you guys have, work in the same circles. You are a business owner. She's a business owner. And, you like her. You trust her. And when she invites you to the wedding, you feel honored. You feel happy. You feel like, you know what? This is not just a business relationship, but this is also leaning and working toward a personal relationship. You get to the wedding, and guess what? The wedding is beautiful. It's on the outskirts of Orlando, Florida. You're seeing the water. It's a beautiful day. The sun is shining. Everything seems picturesque. The spirit of everyone there is high. People are excited. Your friend is the bride of this wedding. And she is absolutely gorgeous. Everything is laid out. You can tell that money has been spent. All the details have been considered. So once the proceedings go forward, you're just looking forward to having a great time. The nuptials are said, the kiss has happened, and guess what? It is time to have fun. So all of these things are happening. And you're thinking to yourself, what a great wedding. What a beautiful expression of the union of my friend and her husband. Where is the food? That's what you're thinking next. Where is the food? So when it finally comes down for the food to be served, it looks delicious. The perfect type of food for a perfect day. You have bread, you have pasta, you have all of the trimmings of some great food. And in a matter of moments, everything changes. People, even though there's a DJ playing music, even though the weather is nice, the venue is laid out beautifully, people eat a couple of bites of the food and they just sit there. No one's on the dance floor. No one's snapping their fingers or tapping their feet. They just sit there after eating a few bites of food. And then you feel it. Your mind takes you into a place that you never thought you would be. Essentially, you're high. This is just the situation that happened to one woman who was invited to her friend's wedding. She was given the opportunity to be a part of this beautiful union. And then when the food came out, she got high. 60 to 70 people got high at a wedding that happened back in February. And it is now just being discussed. And it's not just a typical high. Whatever the food was laced with, the cannabis that was used to be in the food takes people over. Men, women, elderly, and there were even some children that were present at the wedding, but they're still trying to figure out if children took in the food. This is the scenario, folks. I want to bring back culture crew member Shaquaya McKenzie as we talk about the unfortunate, crazy circumstances of one lady by the name of Miranda Katie, 38 years old, as she attended this wedding on February the 19th outside of Orlando, Florida, where guests fell ill soon after eating a dinner of salad, pasta, and lasagna that had been cooked with marijuana. What? Like, Shaquaya, part of me, when I was trying to figure out whether we should have a discussion about this story, I was like, Faraji, what do you want this story to be? What should the conversation be? And I said, okay, let's have a conversation about what should be the punishment. Mm-hmm. And can you, here's what I'm posing, folks. How do you trust after you've been violated like this? This is a woman, Miranda Katie. This is what she said about her experience of going to her friend's wedding. And her friend, and check this out, folks. The fact that the food was laced with marijuana, the bride knew. And she conspired with the caterer. All these folks at the wedding, this was the wedding of a white woman. And she conspired with the caterer, who was a black woman, to lace the food with marijuana. Keenan, can we put up what Miranda Katie said? She said, quote, we're all at events and gatherings regularly talking about her relationship with the bride. She said, crossing paths monthly, quarterly is a regular thing in this town. The bride has a great energy and vivacious personality. It was pretty traumatic, emotionally traumatic. She said, I'm the type of person to walk into a room and everyone's my friend. To be violated this way from someone you like and trust is really hurtful. I didn't have an option or say. Even if people avoided things like the olive oil, it was still in the bread, in the pasta. Shaquaya,
There are a few things
what
that
the
I'm
hell
taking
would you
apart.
do?
There's
Huh?
a few things I'm taking apart, and I'm just gonna give it to you as it's coming to my head. If it was this potent, nobody tasted it. That's one. Two, back up for a second. Talking about punishment and consequences. If the bride requested this order from the caterer, I do not think the caterer should be held responsible. Though I understand the statute of tampering with a federal one scheduled drug carries up to a maximum of 30 years in prison. It doesn't matter who did it, who commissioned who to do it, who paid who to do it. It was done by the Black woman. So I hope when people hear me, they're not thinking that I'm petitioning a consequence for the caterer because she's Black. I am just thinking of the conditional responsibility that lays at the feet of those who invited the guest to have this meal and have this experience, which is interesting for me. The bride was arrested, but not the husband. So that indicates that the bride conspired in her mind. She conspired in her mind that this was an element of her wedding that she wanted, and albeit for her personal, whatever her personal inventory was in terms of why she wanted it, whether she thought people would chill, whether she thought it would be a good joke, it was completely insensitive to think or consider those who have, elderly, those who have to take medication. Hopefully the children didn't digest the weed-laced food, but it's just unfortunate that something that otherwise, I think if you put it online, it's just a running joke because weed, in the sense that it's so culturally acceptable.
Right.
There's this idea that there's no big deal, but when you smoke weed versus when you ingest weed, and depending on the type of weed it is, it can be a very extreme experience. People, weed does alter your heart rate. There could be, depending on the strain of weed, there can be hallucinogens, certainly paranoia, and anxiety.
And so, check this out, and Shaquaya, to that point, like, I think you hit the nail on the head, because that's one of the reasons why I was like, okay, how should we have this conversation? Because marijuana, cannabis, is so culturally acceptable right now. We've talked about that, right? We're literally talking about a substance that is being discussed to be legal in this country, which may be soon, right? But the fact of the matter is, I didn't see this story as a cannabis story as much as it is about trust and the violation of trust.
Agreed. I think it is.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
like suppose it wasn't cannabis, but something much more severe. Could have been some sort of LSD.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Or something more topically acceptable, like ibuprofen, but I still don't want someone crushing up ibuprofen in my food and giving it to me without telling me.
Giving it to me, for one, without me knowing.
Right.
And then for two, I mean, you got 60 to 70 people at this wedding. Like I said, men, women, elderly, and children. You putting this, I mean, you cooking the lasagna, the salad got it. She said the olive oil every element, every part of the menu.
No, it was a completely infused meal.
Completely infused with cannabis. And it's like, what were this caterer and this bride, what the hell were you thinking?
I question if the caterer asked if the guests would know. Presumably, if I'm a caterer and a bride commissions me to be the vendor for her wedding, and she specifically requests an infused meal, it is my assumption that she has the waived rights of her guests. It is incumbent upon me to check, but it is my assumption, right? Because it's such a bizarre request to make a meal for 70 people at a wedding for it to be infused. One, that's not cheap. And two, I would assume that there is agreement to this, or that it is okay. And it just is, it's just wrong. You know, on behalf of the guest, I'd like to assume it's okay for me to say they'll never be attending any of her events again if
Right.
she is not sent to prison.
Right. Oh, she facing jail time.
Definitely. But I think that it will invoke in them, you know, respectfully, paranoia and or skepticism about other large events they would attend, which is just not fair because it's trauma, you know.
So and that's the other part about it. Like and I know some people might push back on this.
Mm-hmm.
Potlucks. So sorry.
I don't trust potlucks.
I can't do it.
I don't trust potlucks for.
I can't do it. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm at a point right now because my body is the way my body is set up, Shaquaya, that I need to have a level of accountability of who did what. You know what I mean? Like, when you cater somebody, at least you know, outside of what this woman did, but at least you say, okay, this is the caterer. If I have a problem, I have somebody that's going to be held accountable for it, right? Because I tasted the food came from the caterer. She's the caterer. Right. Potluck, you don't know. I don't know. And I think that's the thing. Like, this would make me so paranoid that I couldn't even trust a friend inviting me over to a small dinner. I would be like, no, I can't do that. I can't do it. Faraji, what happened?
But no. It's such a rare and, you know, bizarre occasion. I'd hope people don't take this story to lace their concerns. Rightfully, you should be skeptical about, as you said, Faraji, unless you can truly identify where the food source is coming from. If you're not attending a restaurant, you know where it's coming from the kitchen directly. There's grounds to be skeptical of all of it, but I hope it doesn't lace people's concerns too much, because I've never heard of anything like this prior to this.
I've never heard of it. Matter of fact, the reason that this story comes up is simply because yesterday, the woman, the bride, and the caterer were charged. They were charged yesterday with delivering marijuana and tampering with guest food, along with the misdemeanor of culpable negligence. Culpable negligence. Break that for. I want you to. I know what you know. I know you know what that term means, Shaquaya. So that means that they knew, right?
You intentionally put people in harm's way and did not care to. So culpable negligence is, in short, doing harm intentionally without providing recess or occasion for the person upon which you are intending harm against to have an opportunity not to be harmed. Right. So it is, and by neglect, it's also indicating that there could have been more serious outcomes of the situation in terms or related to people's health, and you were not concerned with that, right? You neglected the well-being of people that were supposed to be in your care, so far as it relates to being your guest. And so,
right. So okay. So you knew. Now, here's the thing: the tampering charge alone, according to the documents, is a felony with a maximum penalty of up to 30 years in prison for each woman. Now I don't think they're going to get 30 years,
right?
But that is a serious penalty. I did not know. I mean, I've heard of food tampering, but I didn't know it carried.
I didn't either.
Up to 30 years in prison. I mean, can you imagine being in prison for food tampering, and you might be in prison longer than murderers?
Or longer
or just as long as a rapist.
Because is this tampering? I wonder if it applies to roofies or to drug-induced.
It probably. Well. And so my question would be, Shaquaya, do you think that is too severe for a situation like this, or is that just what these women should be facing?
I think it's the sentence window, and the maximum of that is severe. I think that if neither one of them should have, especially if they don't have prior misdemeanors or felonies, they absolutely should not get 30 years in prison. Now, I'd like for there to be room to think about, you know, probation, commute. I'm not sure how it
No
will
type
work
of
out.
community service involving food.
Not community service, but like a commuted sentence after a certain period, maybe 12, 8 to 12 months. But it's very hard for me to think about the maximum of this penalty for this case, even though it does, there was harm. There was harm. So I'm not trying to excuse that. And I certainly wonder what the guest of this wedding believed the right punishment would and should be. For the woman that was speaking in the article, she speaks more emotionally than more logically about what she thinks the consequence should be. She just knows that she was hurt, and it's hard for her to know that she was hurt by someone she trusted. But I doubt if all of these people that attended the wedding presumably loved or cared for this couple, they would want to see her in prison for long, and therefore there's room to think about, to follow the case and really see what people go on the stand and say.
Let me tell you, if that happened to me, or if it happened to a family member of mine, or say my grandmother, because like I said, there were elderly people there.
Right.
Imagine this happening to your grandmother. I would want to issue some street justice first, and then let your ass sit in prison.
You definitely got to go.
You know what I'm saying? You be like, you gotta get that, at least that like, you crazy. And I know that, to Miranda Katie, she was like, I didn't even know. They didn't even ask me. Like some of these people probably would have gone along with it. Like, put a little something extra in my plate.
Cracking up as you were introducing the story, because I was rereading the story and looking at the anecdote from the individual who attended. And it's just, I think, it would not have been an issue if they forewarned people and gave them the option to participate in the meal or not. But unfortunately, that's not the case, and therefore they're going to have to suffer the consequences. We shall see what those are.
Let me tell you something. People, and Christopher Perkins say, no, you should never play with anyone's food. Lock her up for 30 years at least. Let me tell you something. Christopher, like, lock her up for 30 years at least.
Well, I don't know why we even talking about, black people,
behind
black people say,
go all in.
We ask anybody black, they're gonna be like, what? My food? Lock
right.
Up. Yeah.
Right. But I mean, all due seriousness,
yeah,
like the level of trust in violation I would feel would be way off the meter. I wouldn't be able to trust you. I wouldn't even be able to trust anybody. And it only takes one, right? I mean, this is a very serious incident. I'm not trying to make any light of the situation, because it could have gone left much more than it had. But I would not be able to trust people. I know I wouldn't. I'd be like, I went to a wedding thinking one thing, and I come back hot. Look, the lady Miranda Katie said that she felt like she was literally about to die. That's how serious it was. She must not have been a cannabis user, because she's like, she felt literally like she was about to die. So much so that she posted on her phone, she left a message in case I died, somebody can know what was going on.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's serious.
Yeah.
That is absolutely. And I mean, for people, and I've heard, and I'm sure you probably heard stories, Shaquaya, of people who have done things to people's food, and you know what I mean, or just done things like pranks and stuff. And nowadays, you can't do that to people, man. You got to be very, very mindful that some stuff. I get on my children about pranks and stuff, because some stuff stays with you for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You because you tap into a certain, like, you can create a fear, or you tap into somebody's fear when you do certain things like that. And that's the very serious side of it. That's the very serious side of it.
It is. I pulled a really bad prank as a kid one time, and it scarred me for life to know how not to play with people. And it was with food, ironically, but not used correctly. So I'll leave spirit. Right. But there's what you
did it leave a scar on the person you pranked?
Yeah, I was at a friend's. I was like 6 years old, and we were playing with
You
everybody.
wouldn't be a friend of mine, Shaquille.
No. You know, everybody who goes to sleep first gets messed with. And in my 6-year-old mind, people were like putting toothpaste and ketchup on people's face. And I was like, oh, hot sauce. And I put hot sauce on someone's face and it got in their eye. And it was, yeah, no, we don't play with people's food. We don't play with food on people. We don't. I was 6. Don't judge me. I was 6.
Oh, we would not have been friends.
No. The girl
No. Even 30 years later,
I
I'd be
haven't
like,
seen her in years. But
you'd be
guarantee
like, hey, so we cool? I'd be
Sorry,
like, we never
Dominique,
cool,
if you're
Shaquille.
watching this. My bad, Dominique. You know it was. I was 6. It wasn't there. I was not there. I was not there. But you don't play with people's food. You don't.
All right, so I hope Miranda, Katie, and all those folks that went to the wedding of this lady, of this bride, really find. I mean, seriously, I hope they are all right. But more importantly, don't lace people's food with cannabis. I think that should be I feel like that should be pretty obvious. But I just want to make sure that for any watcher out there, don't lace anybody's food with cannabis.
Yeah, no, it's
don't do those things. Don't lace people's food with nothing other than flavor and good seasoning. That's all I'm gonna say.